Yeah, sometimes it's like the intro conversation before we get going on the actual content is, where you get a lot of golden nuggets and just like, if you just have some fun conversations, some good banter. But I shouldn't say always. I try to always have something to sip on when I'm, sitting here with a friend, chatting life, business, clinical skills, that sort of thing. And so yeah, do you have a beverage of choice in front of you? What do you got there,
Yes,
Josh?
yes. I got my Java with a little half and half.
There you go. There you go. What are we drinking today? Are you a coffee connoisseur of sorts?
Um, yeah, yes and no. I've gone from you know, the I need caffeine heavy diesel to maybe a medium roast Colombian. So
That's what I've got right here. I got a medium roast Colombian from our friends at Five and Hook in
nice.
Wheaton, but they also have a location in Knoxville, Tennessee. But my wife and I, we always buy the 5 pound bag of coffee and brew it ourselves at home because I got tired of spending $6 a cup at
Yeah.
some coffee shop in the country. It's sort of big. Haven't shopped there in a long time, to be honest. But it's like C minus coffee, and they just they just burn their beans. They really do. It's no good.
Did you hear Brutus?
No, I didn't. Do you just
Oh,
growl? Yeah.
yeah, he just moaned. He's like,
That's how I feel when it's
After
like when
talking
I'm
about
traveling.
coffee again.
Yeah, when I'm traveling, it's like what the coffee shops are nearby, and if it's Dunkin' or Starbucks, that's how I feel. It's like
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
always look
I'm
for
a
the smaller
brew it at
shops.
home as well, right?
Yeah,
I mean, if I'm in a pinch, I'll stop in somewhere, but I like having my little setup, so it's there for me whenever I'm ready for little Java. So
for sure, for sure. Well, last thing I'll tell you is we found a Costco gem. So Costco sells Um, because we like to add a little either maple syrup or vanilla, just something to the coffee, We're not like, I don't know if you've ever seen the show on Amazon, Reacher, in the
yeah,
season one. It's a great show. It's really funny, but it's also kind of dark. Not for the lighthearted, but I started watching it because the third season just came out, and I've seen season one and season two. Mary hasn't seen either. I used to watch that while I would run, and because it's heavy, it's heavy, and she doesn't necessarily
yeah.
love that. Anyway, so I don't know how I got there. Costco. But no, Reacher. He said, you just seem like an ordinary guy, and ordinary guys drink their coffee black, And Mary kind of looked over at me like, you are not ordinary. Like I need all the things. I need cream. I need a little half and half. I need half and half. I need
A
maple
little maple
syrup.
syrup or a little
Yep.
something.
Yeah. But the Costco reference there is Costco has a vanilla bean paste. It's like Madagascar bourbon vanilla bean paste. So it's not like it's great to bake with, but um, we just take like a little spoonful and put it in our coffee, and it is unreal. I mean, it's $30 for a small little container, but it is like it's that's been the latest addition to my coffee game that
May have to
we call it.
dabble. It sounds pretty
Oh
good.
my gosh, yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool, not gonna lie. So, well, anyways, that's how this goes, Josh. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Clinical Leadership Podcast.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Alex Earl. I'm joined today by my friend and colleague, Dr. Josh Schreiner. Josh, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So we got a lot to discuss, all good things, as I always like to say. And I've known Josh for a few years now, and started off with the clinical realm, kind of in a dry needling course up in Wisconsin, and we just stayed in touch over the years. And I've been blessed to get to know you and your business a little bit more. We'll say like intimate. You know what I mean by that. Just I get to know some of the clients, and to be frank and transparent. You are a client in the Midwest Mastermind, and so I want you to share kind of your journey and your thoughts on how you got to where you are, and also what lies ahead. So for those for the listeners and our audience out there that don't know anything about you, Josh, give us a little 30-second overview on who you are, where you're from, and what you enjoy.
Yeah, I'm grew up in small town Wisconsin, Sauk Prairie, not too far away from where I practice right now. Um, and here I'm in Verona, Wisconsin, and yeah, I mean 37-second clip. Whoa, graduated early from high school, went to the military, was an aircraft mechanic, got out. Went to school in La Crosse, was a drawbridge operator for 3 of the years I was there. Then went to Northwestern Health Science University and studied to get my doctorate. Sure as you know, it's like drinking water from a fire hose. It's pretty intense. But I knew that I wanted to take that route, and so I got towards the end of my studies there and kind of canvassed South Central Wisconsin for practices that I was gonna purchase, and there were five. One of them was a good fit, and that's how I landed here in Verona.
Awesome. Awesome. What was it like being in the military at that time?
It was very high ops tempo.
Mhm.
Particular job I had, airframe I worked on, did in-flight refueling. So everybody needs fuel. So we were always on mission doing refueling and going all over the world, and it was very busy. So I went in '04, so things were happening pretty steady at that point.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There was a couple of things going on at that time, if I recall, that were
Couple
pretty
of things.
significant. Yep. Yep. What about
Mhm.
now? Do you still keep in touch with your, former military friends, or are you kind of just all into business? I mean, and one thing I want to ask you about is I'm sure you've seen the news with all the airline issues that we've had lately. But I always think of you, like when I think of, or whenever I hear, there's some type of plane that's gone down or some mishap, and for some reason you come, and another guy that I went to high school with that's a navigator, based out of the UK. But I always think of you two because you're the only two people I think I know directly who were in the Air Force, correct? If I'm understanding.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So cool,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. What was that
So
like?
yeah, it was it was interesting. I do keep in touch with some of the guys that I was in with, but as I, kind of got out and transitioned into like your, traditional college education, it wasn't super easy because I couldn't really relate to a lot of the students who were, 18 years old in my freshman class, and here I'm 23 and like I'm just used to full-time work, and student life is very different. And so I was like, when I was transitioning out, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go live the college life. And so then did that for a year, and I was like, okay, like I'm bored. And so like there's some student veteran groups that I outreached to, and like, kind of cut from the same cloth. So it was good to have kind of that resource there. And yeah, we did a lot of cool stuff, and yeah, it was I ended up getting a job full time because it was like the summer and I was sick of, sitting around my I didn't have to live in the dorms. I was able to live in a house off campus. But so I saw this job for a drawbridge operator for the railroad, and I was like, oh, logistics. I know logistics. I can operate radios and coordinate, And so yeah, but they like I did the interview and they're like, okay, you got the job. And I was like, sweet. So it looks like I'm guaranteed one shift, like a week. It's Friday night at 11 to Saturday morning at 7 a.m. And they're
Wow.
like, oh yeah, that's the guaranteed shift for you, but you're the vacation relief guy, and we haven't had anybody to do vacation relief for 2 years. So all the other bridge tenders are chomping at the bit to take vacation. And I think I worked July and August every day
Wow.
because everybody else took off. So it was like, 8, 16-hour shifts sometimes. Trains cruising past you like 10 feet away, and you're on a bridge, and it's, built in 1908, and it's just super old and rickety, and you got to maintain it. And it was stressful to coordinate some of the boat captains that would come up from down south with like a full barge that'd be coming up, and they're like, I want the bridge open. And the dispatcher running trains in Minneapolis would be like, yeah, no, Amtrak's coming through. We're not going to give you the bridge. And the barges have the right of way because they've been there longer. So it's like you got to run in between the two.
Oh,
And
geez.
they would get kind of heated, especially if the river was high. And so it was an interesting job, but I was able to like, get all my studies done when things were quiet and there's a lot of wildlife out there. I had a deer come across the bridge, just trotting across the tracks from
Just right in front
Fish
of you.
Island to, yeah, right past me. Um,
Man,
and a coyote too. So those are my wildlife stories. I should write a book about my bridge tending days.
I bet you could, because I think it even when it just started, like you got the job because it sounds like they had a need and you were a body and a pulse, and had basic understanding of logistics. I mean, that's one of the things that we talked about in the coaching group is always be recruiting, because you never know when there's going to be an opportunity for you to hire top quality candidate, but then also like you got to nurture the roles that are within your business. And that might not be you have a job tomorrow. It might be, hey, let's keep in touch because I like you and I can see a place for you, just not right now. So that's why you always got to be recruiting, always, to avoid situations like that where you're hiring out of desperation, because nobody has ever made a really good hire out of desperation, myself included. Some of the worst hires I ever made were because I found a body with a pulse and I needed something I didn't want to do anymore, and it was a disaster from day one. And so, yeah, I mean, there's definitely lessons there. I mean, because it's people, right? It's running a business. There's definitely logistics in our practices, and it's just human dynamics that are ever changing. And you get it wrong, you really, really set your business back. You get it right, and you really can, and no pun intended here, you can get it right on the smooth track. There you go. How about that?
Right.
So yeah, cool. Let's talk more about you and purchasing a practice, because you come out of practice and we have very little options, right? Like you could teach. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. You could teach, you could open up your own practice. You could be an associate somewhere, or you could just, if you got the liquid, you got the cash, or you have an investor, you could get right into purchasing a practice, an already established practice. So you could do the buy or build strategy. I know Hormozzi's talked about that a bunch. When you want to get your own business going, well, is there a proof of concept that's already been done? If so, you might just want to buy a practice that's already got it going, right? I already have a book of business. So talk to our listeners who are considering buying a practice, because I've had JC on, a while ago, and we talked about his journey from buying a practice to where he is now. But share
Mhm.
your experience from like how the opportunity came up, what you were looking for, and what the seller was looking for, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so there typically are those paths that are available to you when you're approaching the end of your education, and so I knew that I didn't want to be an associate. Like, was through my internships, I was like pretty confident in my clinical skills, and I was like, okay, I don't like this is going good. I don't want to work underneath another clinic and have this, kind of overhead. I wanted to be in more of a command role, so I knew that I wanted to purchase a practice. So like a year out from me graduating, I drafted a letter and I basically mailed that to all the practices in and around the area that I wanted to practice in. And so I got some interesting responses like, there's too many chiropractors in Madison and, good luck and, this isn't for sale and this and that. But I did have some quality leads that I followed up on and just kind of did my due diligence to kind of vet the clinician and like their style of practice and what they kind of what their philosophy was and approach to care and whether or not that would be a good fit because ultimately you're going to have retention of their patients, and if you're not on the same page or if you guys weren't or the same kind of approach to care, then your retention percentage is going to tank, and that's like you're paying for that. So
Oh yeah, that
I
I call
talked to
that
a
a
few.
it's a clash of the cultures, right? Like you are
Sure.
buying culture A, but you're implementing culture B, and that clash, like that, you're right. The drop off, the retention is going to be significantly lower than if you were to be practicing the same model, the same. That doesn't have to be the same techniques and services, but it almost has to be the same culture, right? But go on, yeah, this is great. Keep going.
Yeah, so I initially reached out to this doc, but there was at that point when I reached out to him, he was dealing with a wrist injury and thought that he could just rehab it himself while still practicing, but he really needed time off to, to rest for injury like that. And so he got back to me a little bit late, and I had already locked in a preceptorship with another doc in Sun Prairie, and so that wasn't too far away, about a half an hour away from where I was doing my preceptorship. So I was doing that, and then I was shadowing him, and kind of throughout that process, continuing to have the conversation of, is this really a good fit for me? What's your practice style? What are you gonna do after, you're done practicing? And he went into the restaurant business. Um, and so yeah, basically kind of stepped in. I graduated November 2016 and was in practice February 2017. And so, yeah, I mean, I had through that whole process, I had some guidance and a mentor and some coaching and like I think that's super important to have somebody, in your corner to kind of help you through that process of you know what you need to do as far as the business plan and working with financing and all the things that need to come together for you to actually get into practice for yourself. So I think everybody can benefit from having a mentor that has done what you want to do and has been successful at it. So that's kind of how I got into practice here in Verona, and yeah, been here for 8 years.
Let's talk a little bit more about the operations now of the business. So, I'm sure you came into someone else's business and realized, oh, there's a couple of holes in this business bucket, so operationally speaking, and I would imagine with your military background where they are very, task oriented and then, after action debriefs and all the, making sure that we did the things that we needed to do. Now, full disclosure, I've never been in the military. I admire and respect the military and law enforcement, but they're very much so, regimented. So how did you take your military background and I hate to use the word impose, but how did that affect how you now run and manage and operate your own company, your own business?
Yeah, I think the prior doc was he had to have control of everything, right? Like
Interesting.
he yeah, he was very much wanting to be in control of everything, and his spouse worked at was the front desk, and I
Wow.
was like, yeah, I'm gonna
Did you fire her?
I'm gonna
Did
hire
you
on
have to
chief of
fire?
staff. Yeah, I did. Yep.
You
So
did?
started. I did.
Yeah.
Yep. So just because I wanted to implement some change, and it wasn't
So let me
what
get this straight.
she had been used to.
Yeah, you bought his practice, but his wife stayed as an employee.
She did not. She stayed on to wrap up
Oh, okay, okay,
things
okay. I
from
thought
a
I,
billing
I thought
standpoint.
there was a timeline there where like you bought the practice and she came with it, like she was she was a part of the purchase, and then you realize like 30, 60, 90 days in, you're like, oh no, this is not like I gotta fire you, I gotta let you go. So I'm glad
Yeah.
I asked that because
Well,
I interpreted that as like you actually had to fire her, but
I,
go on.
yeah, I didn't have to sit her down and fire her, but like going into that, it was offered like, hey, this person could stay on and do things this way, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna hire on someone fresh because the systems that I was bringing into the system or into the practice were different, and there would have been some bias there on how things would have been changed, and was already feeling the pushback from it. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna start fresh, train somebody new. So yeah, that was interesting getting into practice and implementing some systems or some curveballs in regards to I bought a hybrid practice, so insurance was part of the revenue and then a cash, for those people who are out of network. But as a new provider coming into on the scene in Wisconsin, there's a lot of HMOs, and one of them in particular was we were in communication with was like, yeah, no problem. You know, he's if you're in a transition of the business to a new doc, it's you're already credentialed. He just needs to submit his information, and then it should be good to go. Meanwhile, they're actually closed to all new chiropractors in Wisconsin, so that was something that I fought pretty hard when they said, no, you're a new provider. You're technically, not going to be
Not
able to
allowed
kind
in.
of get
Yeah.
grandfathered in per se. And so then that was a chunk of revenue that I lost that I was frustrated with. But it helped me have that conversation with those particular individuals who had been coming to the clinic and, you know, pointing out the quality of service, and it's not just going to be your typical high volume in out situation. And they saw the value in that, and so they kind of transitioned over to being a cash-based patient. But yeah, the real learning starts when you get out of school and into practice, and so learned some lessons there. But been able to hit the ground running, did a lot of community outreach in the beginning, and got involved, and so it worked out good.
Yeah, I like what you just said that the real learning begins when you get out of school. That's so true. That's so true. We focus so hard in school to become competent doctors, and that's school's job is to make sure that as we graduate, we're not going to be a menace to society or have, lots of adverse effects or incompetence. Yeah, basically incompetence, like we're not going to try to put our license or their reputation on the line. But at the same time, school, I don't know about how it was at Northwestern, but at National, the methodology for marketing and sales and just overall the business courses were, straight from the 80s and the 90s when insurance reimbursements were 100%. It's like
Yeah.
the insurance game has changed. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The game has changed. It changes incrementally every year and not in our favor. So yeah, I guess you kind of touched on having those direct conversations with patients and they could see the value. If you were to wager a guess, what were some things that you would say that they valued over their insurance? So if people that are on the fence about dropping an insurance or if they're about to start a practice and they're like, do I go insurance? Do I do hybrid? Do I just go cash? Seems like everybody's going cash. What advice would you give our listeners that are seeing a lot of people come into their office right now that do take insurance and they're thinking, man, how do I get my patients to value like not necessarily me, but the outcomes that our clinic can provide and not be just so conditioned to value their insurance. Did I ask that the right way? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking there. I think you really have to, differentiate yourself from, your typical, here there are a lot of clinics that are in with the HMOs, but they're always booking out in advance because so many people want to use their insurance, and so they're just very busy and booked out. And I think you have to differentiate, what you do and the value of the care that you provide, and kind of get them to not associate a dollar amount with that. Like I don't want to pay your cash rate because I can use my insurance. And it's like, okay, well, your insurance has changed like since 2013, back in the day, I believe it was, or 2011. Insurance has drastically changed, and so higher deductibles, and most of these people at the beginning of the year are paying a lot more out of pocket in the first place to get to their deductible. So it's like you're gonna get a higher quality of care here, and we're gonna move towards the outcomes that you want. This isn't just you're in, you're out. Like, what are you trying to get patients to understand? That what is their issue keeping them from doing, and then presenting them with options on how you are going to get them back to doing those things that they're missing out on, whether it's, being able to spend time with their kids or participate in, physical activity. So I think I hope that kind of answers part of your
Yeah.
question, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's also timely as we're going through the Innovator program, and you're a previous student of the Innovator program as well, and you're going through it again. Modules, let's see here, five, six. I'm kind of revamping it this year, so five, six, and seven are all sales, right? And I'm going to make the argument again and refine the argument about sales in that sales is nothing more than facilitating change. That's it. I can't serve, with my higher knowledge on rehab, my advanced clinical skills. None of that matters, right? Even if that's just my opinion. None of that matters if you don't know that I exist, or none of that matters if I don't actually sell you something. And I need to sell you on an idea that what you're currently getting is not getting you everywhere. It's not currently getting you to where you need to be or where you want to be. So maybe said differently, going the insurance route will get you so far, but not all the way that you and I both know that you need to get to. So my out of network rate is significantly higher than you were probably anticipating to pay. And but here's what you get. And now this is the contrast. This is what you said earlier. Differentiate yourself. And with my out of network higher premium rates, this is what you get. And you just start saying all the things that we all know. And typically, if you're a rehab chiropractor or private practice physical therapist listening to this, we know the medical model. We know it. We know it really well. We've either experienced it ourselves or our patients are coming to our office now having gone through it. And they just, how we know that the medical model is failing a lot of people with, biomechanical, aches and pains. They tell us, right? They tell us how, like they're told, take this pain pill, take this anti-inflammatory, rest, and maybe if you want to, you could do PT in 2 or 3 weeks. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're a golfer, if you're an active individual, if you enjoy being outside, if you enjoy being active, that's not sufficient for you. Like you want more. And I think Josh, you and I would agree that you deserve more. And so anyways, that is the sales conversation is talking to someone in a way that they can see the change that's necessary. And that includes using or not using their insurance. So I love it. I love it, man. Yeah, keep going on in your practice because I think buying a practice, going back to you buying a practice, there's got to be some lessons learned there. So what was either a lesson learned or a mistake made that you want to share with us that you were glad you went through it?
Um, so yeah, I mean in regards to private practice, um, just being on top of your systems and doing your monthly team meetings and keeping on point with that because if you're not keeping up with the cash flow through your business, it's you don't really know where it's going. And so initially in the beginning I hired on an office assistant and it was great, but you know, I didn't communicate as well with her on things that should have been getting done. And so we kind of got a little bit off track as far as our metrics and where we wanted to go with that. So I think starting from the beginning and really kind of doing your due diligence to be consistent on where you're at month to month and your marketing and trying to keep momentum. I think we kind of lost sight of that in the first year, and it took a while to build up that momentum again in year two. So that's one of the things that I learned. I learned a good lesson about that, and it's helped me, kind of pay more attention to that and kind of reinvent the way that I do things in the respect of like cash flow and services and keeping my employees on point with that.
Yeah, I think, and we talked about this in either one-on-one calls or the mastermind weekly call about, just taking it seriously. There's a level of maybe ignorance when we come out of school and we think we're going to run a business, and then it hits us, right? If you don't have money in the bank to make payroll, or you wonder where money's going to come from to pay rent, like we've all been there, especially early on, and you either like rise to that occasion and figure out how not to run a business, Or, you really kind of just putter and struggle, with hills and valleys of business where like the more you feel like you take two steps forward and four steps back, and I've been in that, and I got to coach myself, and I had to get out of my own way when it came to marketing, and had to be unapologetically genuine in my sales. And there you go. I started to take and if I go back to like the aha moment, it was I can't treat my business as a hobby anymore because I'm good at it, and I was treating it like it was a hobby. Does that make sense? Like it was, I want to go play soccer on the weekends. I want to go run. I want to work out, and I want to go treat patients. There was a level of complacency, and it was more like a hobby, the first 18 months. And if I showed you my P&L for the first 18 months, you'd be like, oh, what? And you're now coaching people, Um, and I wouldn't have traded that for the world because I remember looking back on it thinking, my business plan, my financial plan was such that I'd be buying a house by now, and I'd be looking for a house, and that didn't happen for a while. Like, why is that? I'm not everything's not going according to plan. And so then I had to take it seriously. And I had some people in my corner that really said, you got to focus on one thing, right? And then you got to take it seriously. You can't like it's people are not just going to be if you're going to be complacent about your business, then patients are going to be complacent about arriving to their appointments, are going to be complacent about paying their bill. Like they're just you're going to I think I read this from Extreme Ownership with Jocko and Leif Babin, where it says it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. And I was tolerating that this was a fun atmosphere, but it was more like a hobby. It was more like a hangout spot. And so people treated it as such. And I didn't like that. So I had to change. I had to take it seriously. And as soon as I started taking it seriously, go figure. Everything changed. Everything changed across the board. So I enjoy sharing the mistakes that I've made on client calls and on group calls because I think that there's incredible value in avoiding mistakes that people before you have made as well. So, no, I appreciate you sharing because I think that a lot of times people get value out of what to do, like a recipe, like here, do these next three things, and also like here, don't do this. don't
Yeah.
don't assign a task and not hold someone accountable. Without any oversight. Don't assign a task to someone that's out of their pay grade. Yep, that's just and don't make assumptions. That's what I would say. When you hire people, don't make any assumptions. Cool, man. So, in terms of business ownership, right? Because we could talk clinical, we could talk, but in terms of business ownership, let's talk about maybe let's go into the archives or the library, the library of either. Let's talk about books. So, what references, what books would you say have been the most help for you in the last 5, 6 years of business ownership?
Yeah, I came across a book by Darren Hardy called The Compound Effect, and I thought that book really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of the distractions that we have, as entrepreneurs and in general, and in this day and age, we're very distracted. Things take away from our focus, and just the mindset of people who want instant gratification, or they were like, I'm going to have $1 million practice. I'm going to do it in this amount of time. That's really possible, but, you really have to be focused and make specific, available specific times in your day where you're going to be chipping away at certain things and be consistent with it. And those consistent actions that you're taking, they compound over time. So you can't take a redwood down in one swing. It takes a lot of, chops at the tree. But so that was a book that really kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna be intentional about certain times of my day where I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna bookend my day, I'm gonna read something motivational in the morning, and then something for his relaxation or in the evening, and dedicate certain amounts of time to really knocking out things and compartmentalizing things, and then just taking a little bite out of it at each point in the day. That book was good. And then another book that I read was Mastering Fear by Brandon Webb, and there's a lot of kind of his experience in the military and how basically breaking it down, he says that fear can either be a pair of manacles that, paralyze you and lock you down, or fear can be the thing that sets you free, the thing that motivates you for success and greatness. And so everybody's heard the acronym, false evidence appearing real. And so I think if you can, see what you're fearful of, and work through that and use it, you can definitely kind of catapult yourself to success. Um, so that was another good book. And then another book, Emotional Intelligence by Travis Bradbury. We're human beings, we all have varying degrees of emotional capacity, but just to kind of take a look at, yourself and managing, your self-interest, your self-image, and then just being open to understanding other people and have, being capable of empathy and just having a capacity for that. I think really helps you understand where people are coming from, and even if they're in a certain spot or a bad way, it's just like, okay, well, you really don't know um, the battles that somebody's facing, so you give them a little wiggle room there. So that was another a good book. That those three books, I think, kind of helped me grow a little bit as a human being, and yeah, I think they're good. If people should read them if they're interested.
I like it. I like it. I always say, and because my own coach has taught us that, like it's impossible to grow a business without you first growing, right? I even added like another layer that like you also can't grow as a person first, without, previously growing spiritually. So I always say, you know, spiritual growth precedes personal growth, and personal growth precedes business growth. And, so yeah, I like that these books are non-clinical books. They're just like human behavior, and and also the business one, The Compound Effect. I've read a different book by Darren Hardy, I believe. So if you had to wave your magic wand, if someone's looking for a book to read, maybe they have a few Audible credits to their account and they could purchase one of them. Which one do you recommend of those three?
I guess, I mean, it depends on, kind of their background. Like I said, the Mastering Fear has a lot of military references. But I think the compound effect could probably be the one that most people could easily, kind of make it through and kind of do a good evaluation of, their day in and day
Mhm.
out kind of time spent.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I like it. I think I myself have a credit. I think I'll look into that as well. So on my long drives to Illinois and or where else, I'm driving in the good old USA here. So let's yeah, awesome. So I guess you opened up or you purchased in 2017, right? Is that what you said?
Mhm.
2017? That's what I
Yeah.
thought. February 2017. So what's next? That's 8 years. Congrats, you've been in business 8 years. So what's next for Dr. Josh here?
Yeah, so I recently started a new business, Prairie Golf Performance and Rehab, and I just I got TPI certified like the end of 2017. I love to golf. I've been golfing since I was a kid in high school, and so I wanted to kind of carry that passion into the passion I have for physical medicine. So I started looking into the Titleist Performance Institute, and I got certified level one. And then over the years, I've been working with golfers, and I've seen it time and time again that, like, you know, golfers who are in pain, they stop golfing, or they get referred the traditional medical route where they go either see a PT or a chiro, and they get the same kind of cookie cutter approach to what these golfers are having issues with. And it's like throwing the kitchen sink at the wall and seeing what fits. And so, I realize that things are getting missed, and golfers are unique athletes in the sense that, they need attention to detail by someone who specializes in the biomechanics of the golf swing, or the kinematic sequences, as we like to call it. And, that motion puts unique stress on the body, and so they need somebody who understands that from a biomechanical standpoint. And so, like, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I have a passion for physical medicine. I have a passion for golf. And, I started this new company, Prairie Golf Performance and Rehab, to help the golf community continue to enjoy, the game of golf throughout their life, because that's one of the best things about golf, is that it's something you can play with a handicap system relatively competitively throughout your entire life. So if I can help somebody who is hitting, or having some issues continue to play, then that's, helping me kind of achieve my overall purpose.
Yeah, I mean, and I take it you golf?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
It does. I am a golfer. I'm not a scratch golfer, but I'm a work in progress, so
Aren't we
it
all?
takes.
Aren't we all? I think we are. So what, I guess because there's such a wide variety of golfers, right? So who would be like your ideal golfer to work with?
Yeah. So ideally, I mean, with my profession, I'm looking to work with golfers that are between 40 and 60 years old, who are playing, maybe once or twice a week, and they're starting to feel like they're having restrictions, or some of their pain or dysfunction is starting to impact their performance. And so they are, hitting that point in life where the age-related changes are starting to really kind of set in and create some limitations. And that could be dysfunctional range of motion or pain. And so we can help those individuals by analyzing their biomechanics and helping identify problem areas, and creating options for them, to kind of address those areas.
Do you think that people, don't take this wrong way, do you think people care about the biomechanics, or is it like you would notice if you've been working with golfers for a long time, do they want to know like all the detail? Because my understanding golfers, and I haven't worked with nearly as many golfers as you, like they're very detail oriented people, like every little nook and cranny. So, um, tell me a little bit about some of the details that you dive into when you're going through either your assessment, or, do you work with golf pros? So like I would imagine you're not, I mean, I've gone to Titleist as well, so I know that they don't want you to deviate from your lane. They want you to, collaborate with other TPI professionals. But what data or details do you really dive into when you go through your assessment?
Yeah, I feel like golfers do want to know. There's a lot that goes into technique, and putting it all together, and in order to generate the best efficiency, to transfer power to the ball, and just a lot of things got to line up. And so if you break it down into the parts of it all, like, there's lots of things you can get details on. And so one of the things that I feel like has really been able to help me break it down is the implementation of technology. We use a KVS motion capture system, where we suit up a player, and the sensors are able to capture their movements in 3D, instead of just like having a camera in 2D and then drawing lines. We can really get a lot of good movement data from that. And then that allows us to look at where the player may be coming out of position in their swing, that's subtle, but you can't quite see it on video. And that data really does a good job of kind of pointing us to the problems that the player is having. And then we also, in addition to using the KVest for the swing analysis, we take that data and we do the TPI functional movement screen, where that identifies body limitations that could be affecting their performance. And so we kind of couple that together, and we take a top-down view of that. And when we put those two things together, it really presents an individualized um, information for this particular player on which areas they need to improve, or some areas that we can address to help them reduce pain or increase range of motion. And then that just I feel like one-on-one with the doc with that information, it's just really it's individualized. And I feel like you know, that plus the biofeedback portion of the KVS, which is really neat because it can actually help the player feel how they're supposed to be at certain points of the swing, and kind of let them associate the position in their brain and how they need to move to get there. That's something that's really cool. But everything all coupled together, I think, some of my clients really appreciate, and they found that beneficial.
Is K-Vest something that I gotta go way back into my brain here. Now that you mentioned the K-Vest, I think, Ryan Gavin and I took a TPI course a long time ago, and I want to say that there was a K-Vest, vendor at one of the classes. But so you have one of those, right? Because I never bought one. I never went into it. So, What's what are some of the benefits of a K vest? Because like I'm not familiar with it. I think besides it being just a biofeedback mechanism, what like I guess I know the clinical utility, right? It gives us biofeedback. I'm all in favor of that. But what's the connection there between your, TPI movement screen plus the biofeedback? Like how does the golfer take all that information without also feeling overwhelmed? You know what I mean? Like, because those
Yeah,
those
if I
the
would,
data that go ahead, go ahead.
it's a lot. It's pages of data that you can look at. And so what it does is there's four sensors, and basically you wear one on your chest, your lead arm, your wrist, and your pelvis. And those sensors are the same sensors that they use to capture motion in like CGI or video games, to capture movement and put it into a computer. So it allows us to see how each individual segment of your body is moving through the swing. And there's no perfect golf swing, but there is a numbered sequence in which your body has to move in order to generate power from the ground through your body and out through your upper body to the club head. And if you're moving a portion of your body faster or slower, then that's going to take away from your club head speed, or your swing efficiency. But it also allows us to identify some swing characteristics that we see when people are coming out of position. And so we get that information as well, and we can train that to help the player identify, what is the right position. The information that we get also compares the player to their peer group, as well as the PGA professionals. And so, you can kind of compare the two. I mean, depending on what you're trying to do or where you're trying to go with that. But it is a lot of data, and I only cover certain portions of it with my patients so that I don't overwhelm them with all the numbers and what it means. But it allows us to kind of identify areas where in the swing sequence we're seeing some deficiencies or some inefficiencies, but also associate that with some of the range of motion limitations from the TPI screen, whether it's, shoulder limited range of motion or thoracic spine rotation, limits there. And so we can address those things through the techniques we use, dry needling and adjustments and things like
Sure.
that we do in clinic hands-on, in order to improve how they move, and then reassess their swing and see where we can compare the new data to the old data and be like, okay, we're making progress in this particular area that we were having issues with.
So one of the things, and Nick Studholm kind of opened my eyes to this biofeedback, especially when it comes to runners, because what he tried to show in a class that I took with him a while ago was like how misleading our eyes could be to movement. And so he showed a very good case study of like a runner running on a treadmill, and it was just like a sample gait analysis. Like here's this runner, take a look at her. She ran, and then we just kind of discussion. What do you see? And then he hooked up, his biofeedback, and you could see. I think it's called Spark Motion or Kinesio Capture. I forget what his software was called. It might have changed since then, but now it's gotten even more sophisticated. And then once you saw the results of the data collected, right? Because you put the sensors on certain areas, like you mentioned, and then all of a sudden you see angles, spine angles, you see hip angles, you see all of these changes occur, and now you can compare it, right to left. You can compare it, based on what you thought your eyes were seeing. And I was very surprised at how much more movement we were seeing with the biofeedback compared to how I downplayed the movement that I thought I was seeing with just my eyes, if that makes sense. So like I could have easily been fooled by this runner. And don't get me wrong, there's an element of good with biofeedback, and there's also an element of like that becomes the thing that becomes like the idol of the session is like the information that we just gained. If we do nothing with it, then what's the point of it, right? Is kind of the way that I think about biofeedback. So a clarifying question that I have for you is once you've identified someone has a particular physical limitation, are you trying to take the data and, because anatomically speaking, we can only make so many changes. There's a lot of techniques, there's a lot of approaches. We can only make so many changes so far, right? And some people respond well to some techniques and not others. But how does the data that you collect, then line up with your assessments? How does that help the patient in front of you? Because I think that's kind of going to be a little bit of there's an art and then there's a science to what you're saying here. So I'm just curious what your approach is like specifically for golfers.
Yeah, I think, like you said, golfers want to know the details of things, but I think bringing those things together and presenting it to them in a way that, they can kind of see how A can connect to B could help them have a better understanding of, okay, so maybe if I would focus on addressing some of these areas and then, seeing if I can have some measurable change and then seeing how that translates to my performance on the golf course. I think that is one way that we help golfers kind of work through all of the information that goes into the swing and your performance and kind of distill it down to these are some issues that we can work on right now to help you, achieve some of the goals that you're wanting to achieve.
And if you start to get some results and you start to get some momentum, oh my goodness, like even if just it's just a few little, I call it low-hanging fruit. If you just go after the low-hanging fruit and then they might have been a little skeptical, I would imagine like you've won them over. Like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. You definitely know more about golf than I do. You definitely know more about the swing and biomechanics than I do. Like, I'm kind of in the camp of like a Dustin Johnson, like just hit it. That's kind of my thing. Like I don't overthink it. Every time I overthink it, I really shank it. So I just get myself into like a position. So and my favorite people to golf with are people that have fun golfing and know a lot about golf. You know what I mean? So like they're educators as they golf. You know what I mean? Like they take it seriously, but not too seriously. Um, I had a round of golf with a chiropractor back in when was that? February? No, no, no. It was October, November, and up at Troubadour there in Nashville, and it was so much fun because the guy that I was golfing with, Colin, I'll give a little shout out to Colin. He was educating me on golf as I was just trying to like grip it and rip it. Like it's my first time golfing in a while, and I had a great time. But he was giving me tips and pointers the whole time. And I had a good round of golf. I'm not gonna lie, it was my first golf of the year, and but I had so much fun because of the people. I had fun because it was like I was interested a little bit in the detail, but like I wasn't gonna nerd out on foot angles and all this stuff. But every little tip made an immediate difference. So the first tip that he gave me, and I had a nice shot. then the next time he gave me a tip, I was very open to it because like this guy clearly knows what he's talking about. So yeah, I would imagine that the golfers that you see, um, the proof is in the pudding, as we'd say. So as you start to make some of these changes and they see those changes in real life out at the range or out on the course, they're going to be, really impressed with your ideas and your approaches. So awesome, awesome. What I guess I wanted to ask you about, some things that you would want golfers to know. And I do like to ask this question just about any industry thought leader. And I do consider you, a leader in our field, especially in your area with golfers, with active individuals for sure. What's one thing you would want golfers to know?
I'd want golfers to know that um, you don't have to let pain limit your ability to play golf. Like there are options for you. Whoever's telling you to just rest and not do anything when you're in pain, I think is actually doing you a disservice. You can adapt a program or work around certain things when you're having pain or an injury. Rest is or not playing golf because I just feel like that's poor advice, and you should seek out a second opinion in regards to whether or not this should limit you. And I don't think golfers should have to let pain limit their ability to play golf because, like I said, I think there are options for them if they're motivated to continue to play. Um, they don't have to just sit on the sidelines.
That's right. I love that, by the way. That confirms my bias. I'm a very default aggressive provider, with the exception of some clinical cases, like, but not limited to like bone stress, injuries. There are others as well that you got to take it easy. But most biomechanical things, I think we just baby them. Like, to be honest, I think they could be pushed a little bit more. And rest does not necessarily fit that clinical scenario. Rarely, if ever. All right, so that confirms my bias. So thank you, Josh. What about as we kind of were in it's February of 2025. What are some challenges that you've noticed in the golfers that you've seen this year as we head into, I mean, you're up in Wisconsin, so as we head into the spring with courses opening up again, what are some challenges that you see golfers face for the rest of the year here?
Well, I think that those who are working with a coach or like a technique specialist, and their coach is telling them something, like, hey, I need you to move this way, and you can't quite get there. You should go see, so and so or a chiro or a PT. I feel like there is a disconnect between swing coaches, medical professionals, and golf fitness professionals in that they're not communicating with one another, and that can be confusing to the golfer. It can be frustrating to the golfer because they're getting this advice from three different areas, and it's conflicting. So I feel like that miscommunication or lack of communication between the professionals is something that is an issue because it kind of prevents uh, the golfer from achieving their end goal. So I think that's one of the things that we strive to do is work with swing coaches and fitness professionals to make sure that we're all on the same page in regards to what the golfer is trying to achieve. And it's kind of like a in a way a patient-centered care model, right, where you have these specialists who come together and communicate and kind of contribute their specialty in order to get the best possible outcome for the patient. And I think that, right now, I feel like not everyone is putting it all together. And so that's one thing I feel like is a challenge for golfers, this year is that they need to have a team that's all on the same page.
And so, yeah, I would agree because there's a lot of inputs and it could lead to paralysis, right? Like you just have so many things. It could lead to a couple different things that immediately come to mind. One is inaction because you have so much information, you don't know what to do with it. And I think we are drowning as a society, with this thing right here, right? It's like a distraction device. Um, we've never been able to access more information than right now. I think that's why it's called like the digital information age that we're in. Um, and so people are drowning in information, but they are desperate for implementation. They don't know what to do, and they don't know who to trust, and they don't know what information is directly related to them and their scenario. So it's easy to dismiss, right? If you put up put up a thing on social media that says like ten strategies for golfers with back pain, right? I can read that and go, well, it's not for me. I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this. It's not for me. So it's for somebody. It's you know what? It's for somebody else, right? Like that's no nice of him. He wrote that for somebody else, right? And typically that's men. I don't want to be sexist or anything, but typically that's men, right? I'll share this with you that I coach youth soccer. I coach boys and I coach girls. I coach the under 15, under 14 girls, and I coach under 11 boys. So like squirrels trying to gather, rabbits, for lunch is basically like what our training sessions look like. And so I will sit the boys down. The difference between boys and girls is that I will say, hey, we got to move the ball faster. We got to close down space. We got to pressure the defense. We got to press to win. I'll say all these things, and we're like, hey, we're not doing this. And the boys will look around and be like, well, he's talking to him. Like he's not talking to me. He's talking to him, talking to the guy next to me. And I'll say the exact same things at halftime for the girls, whatever the talking point is. And the girls will internalize everything. So when I say we, they think me, right? And they will just like, you could just see them, and I'm like, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Here we go. Here's what we're going to do the second half, right? So I have to like challenge on what we can do better, but then also provide hope that like this is how we'll win this game, right? And so to use my analogy is like typically men are like, oh yeah, this is good information, but it's not for me. And again, I think we shared this on the podcast with Alec a while ago that men typically won't seek a change until not playing golf, in this case, not playing golf costs them more than coming in to see you. And so that will force them to make a change, right? Very few will come in just because the wife is just kicking them in the back of the leg, saying, you got to go get this looked at. You got to get it looked at. But I'd say nine out of 10 are coming in because they're not playing. And that's costing them more than the price of your, higher fees because you don't take insurance. It's well worth every penny of the investment because you're going to get them back on the course. And I know that's the case with you because I've gotten to know you and I've gotten to hear about the success, testimonials with clients that you've been working with. And it's awesome. I love the stuff that you're doing. That's why I wanted to have you on here so you could share more of your journey, more of your future and your plans and who you help and how you plan to help them. And I'm excited for you, man. I really am. I'm really excited for the momentum that you're building. I've been excited to partner with you along the way here for the last year, 2 years here, and no, I'm really encouraged by what you're doing. I'm excited for the expansion into the golf, golf performance and rehab. I'm excited for you. That's why I wanted to have you on. So where can maybe the next generation, maybe some younger professionals that are coming in, where can they learn more about you? How can they find more information on you? Where can they reach out if they've got questions? Tell us how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, for sure. People can reach me at my website, schreinerchiropractic.com, Dr. Josh Schreiner. At on Instagram, we're going to be launching another Instagram for Prairie Golf Performance and Rehab soon, where we'll be putting out some good content in regards to the rehab world. Yeah, those are some places that you can search me out on Facebook as well. So those are some places that we're at right now. Um, yeah, let me know. Reach out.
Will do. And you sent me the biofeedback video of you demonstrating the K vest. And so I'm going to include that video in the show notes. So if anybody is interested in seeing the K vest in action, I'm going to include that YouTube link for people that want to see a little demo of that. Because I think that it's one thing to talk about it, and it's
Yeah.
another to actually see it. I would imagine because we are very experiential beings. It's another thing to experience it. So awesome, awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blast. I like to unpack things. I like to learn. I have a genuine curiosity on how people got to where they are and also what lies ahead, because I can't see around corners. And I know our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of what you brought to today's episode. So thank you for coming on, Josh.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.